Well, g'day, David. How you doing?
G'day, mate. I'm doing very well, thank you. Down here in the warm climate of Melbourne, Victoria,
Oh,
Australia.
it's good to hear that it's like that for a change. That's awesome.
31 degrees today, mate.
Wow, that is temperature, isn't it? Mate, I really appreciate you being here. And as this goes out to people on my district, Australian North and West District, I want everyone to know that I consider you a good mate, David, and I appreciate the way you think about life, think about the church. I recognise that in certain parts of the world, you are Dr. David Wilson. You've thought a lot about what it is to be the church. But every time we've sat down, it's David and it's Roland, and we've just connected. And so
Absolutely.
I appreciate that very, very much. In recent days, as a church, we have been trying to think our way through what it means to be the church in a post-COVID world. We've kind of come to the conclusion that what we will be is probably what God has always called us to be. But maybe there are some spaces where we need to think what we have focused on and where we have been and where we've poured out our energies. And that has boiled down to a space where we're thinking more and more about what it means to love the communities in which we live. And I know that you have a heart for that, David. And I wonder if maybe you could share a little bit about your own story, just briefly about your journey through life, and then some observations you have about that idea of being the church, loving our communities.
Oh, thanks, Roland. Hey, first of all, I need to say it's great to be with you, mate, and it's good to have friends like you. We haven't known each other a whole lot of time, but it feels like we have because we just love talking with each other when we
That's
get to
certainly
meet
true.
each other, and that's great. Thanks so much for this privilege of addressing some issues that I really don't have the answers to, but I love looking at what's going on and what's the possibilities. What is God doing? And I really believe. In fact, I said to somebody the other day, I haven't experienced a movement of God like I'm experiencing today since the 1970s, and the whole Jesus movement. And he
Wow.
asked me just to tell a little bit about me and my background. Well, Jesus movement was really my background in the 1970s. My wife and I. My wife is Debbie, and I started what was in those days was known as a storefront church, a street church, God's House Street Church it was called. Same year at God Squad started, and Fusion started, and a whole lot of other Jesus
Wow.
movement, sort of what was known as parachurch, but I don't believe in parachurch. You don't have something alongside of the church, do you? It's
Well,
church
that's
or it's
right.
not church.
You either have the
You know,
church or you don't.
yeah, that's right. But that's where I really put my theology into practice. I had a BTH, and working on the streets of inner city Melbourne. Some of that theology didn't make much sense, to tell you the truth, on the streets. And I got into some psychology and did a master's and doctorate in psychology, which really helped me put my theology into practice with marginalised people. And ever since, I mean, I've been in many different roles. I was principal of Kingsley College for 18 roles on the 18 years, on the faculty there for 25 years. I was a councillor, elected councillor with the City of Melbourne for a term. I led Urban Seed, which was a mission to homelessness here in Melbourne. So, a whole lot of different roles, but really my biggest concern has been, how does the church walk with the marginalised in our neighbourhoods, but more generally, how can we help Australia understand what the church is really all about? You see, you mentioned COVID. I think COVID is causing us to have a good look at ourselves. But to tell you the truth, that's long overdue. you know, the whole Jesus movement thing in the 1970s was saying the same thing. Let's have a good long look at ourselves. And my big burden is for the unchurched Australia. It's all very well COVID making us have another look at the church so that we who are in the church can be more comfortable or whatever we want. But the question is still begging, what about the unchurched Aussie?